Chapter 70. Sound from upstairs. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Li Tongyun was with Jiang Shui at this time. After Kunlun sent the message informing all registered time travelers of the potential danger, Jiang Shui went to school to pick up Li Tongyun and stayed in the mall. She was thinking about a plan. Jiang Shui had also bought a phone for Li Tongyun so she could keep in contact. A phone would be very convenient, knowing that the world has become more dangerous. Li Tongyun forwarded Qing Chen the message that Kunlun sent to Jiang Shui. Qing Chen read the text word by word, trying to understand what happened. In the message, Kunlun warned that the 3 time travelers that disappeared in Luo City all had their identity information accidentally exposed online at some point. Of the 200 known Luo City time travelers, around a fifth was in such a position. Kunlun wanted everyone to be careful not to let others know their whereabouts if possible. Kunlun didn't mention offering protection for anyone, most likely because they didn't have enough people. I never expected that there were already so many registered time travelers. There are definitely more hidden. The criminals came to Luo City in a hurry and didn't have enough time to investigate everyone's detailed information, so as long as the time travelers stayed away from their homes, they would be safe. For example, the criminals knew about Jiang Shui's home address, so they would come to Jiang Shui's home. But if Jiang Shui wasn't at home, then they couldn't do anything about it. Li Tongyun's thought process was logical and accurate. Qing Chen even wanted to praise her decision. Now, is it appropriate to let them live in his home? Now was not the time to think about that. Since Li Tongyun requested, and they were still in a long-term cooperative relationship together, he still wanted to help. Qing Chen had to admit that even if he wouldn't cooperate with her in the future, he would still help. It's Friday today, I'll go home early. Let's meet in front of the neighborhood entrance at 5:40, and I'll go in first to see if there's anyone suspicious. Before school ended that day, Lu Dezhu suddenly messaged Qing Chen, "Boss, I have made some breakthrough progress here with the transfer students. Although we haven't gotten into the specifics, they already promised a gold bar in advance as sincerity. So, boss, I won't need any commission, but can you please improve my living in the confinement room? I'm about to crazy in that place." Qing Chen took a glance at the device while no one was around, and replied, "That'll depend on the results," before training the rest of his classes. Neighborhood 4, on Xingshu Road was still as quiet as ever, with very few people walking around. Qing Chen had some glossaries in his hand and walked slowly on the small path. It was just past early autumn, and the leaves from the parasol tree along the sides were falling. This was probably the most beautiful time of the year. This time, the 9 suspects at large acted very differently from the criminals before. They seemed to plan and organize their actions well, which made it hard for law enforcement to find any trace of them. Such a criminal organization was the most dangerous of all. Qing Chen looked straight ahead and remembered every person that was caught in his vision. So far, they were all his neighbors. No strangers yet. He quickly took a glance at Jiang Shui's balcony. Everything was where it was, even the folds on the curtain were still the same from this morning. No one was in the house. Qing Chen stood in the hallway and messaged Li Tongyun, "It's safe. My door's open, so come in when you're here." Soon, Jiang Shui and Li Tongyun quietly entered his apartment. Finally, Li Tongyun relaxed a bit, and her expression looked very adorable. Qing Chen smiled, "I'm not a time traveler, so they wouldn't even have any interest in coming here. They're criminals, after all, and probably don't want anyone else to know." Li Tongyun glanced at him, thinking that brother Qing Chen could lie so naturally without any change in facial expressions. Jiang Shui smiled, "Thank you for helping us. I just don't feel safe anywhere outside. Go ahead and watch some TV with Xiaoyun while I make dinner." After saying that, she walked off into the kitchen. Jiang Shui's ability to be always so gentle impressed Qing Chen. Li Tongyun suddenly said quietly, "My mom's pretty amazing, right?" Qing Chen rubbed her head and said, "Do you know about Li Shatong?" Can you tell me what the corporations think about this? There's nothing interesting, Li Tongyan said, sitting on the sofa with her legs dangling around. I heard from my sister in the inner world that Li Shutong went away for many years, and his sudden reappearance caused some expected surprise. Qin Chen took out a futon from the cupboard. His home had 2 bedrooms and a living room, but one of the bedrooms didn't even have a bed in it. He had been just using it as a storage room. He said to Li Tongyan, "You and your mother should sleep in my room tonight. The bed is a little small, but it's still good." "I'll sleep in the living room." "That's so nice of you," said Li Shutong with a smile. "Right, brother Qin Chen, where are you when Li Shutong was eating in the Sunlight Pavilion restaurant?" "Me," said Qin Chen looking at her, "I'm on a bullet train, and I only saw the large flying ship circling around the Eternal Tower." Oh, Li Tongyan didn't question him further. The corporations had a vague standing on his topic. They all seemed to be waiting for the others to act first. Qin Chen asked, "So why did Li Shutong end up in prison in the first place?" Li Tongyan looked at him and said, "I don't know. A kid my age, asking to look at Li Shutong's files, would stand out too much. Now that I shared so much with you, it's time for you to exchange me some information." Qin Chen thought about it and said, "I can tell you some insight about the outer world. I think we need to join He Xiaoxiao's group chat, but before that, I have to get the program for the data fortress of the inner world, so my identity can be protected. I believe He Xiaoxiao is not a single person, but rather an organization. They intend to assemble all the time travelers. That is, of course, just my guess." Li Tongyan said while tilting her head, "Brother Qin Chen, you only told me information about the outer world because you think I might guess your identity through what you tell me about the inner world, right?" Qin Chen smiled, "What do you think?" As they were chatting, they suddenly heard a sound from above. It was a chair falling down onto the floor. This building was so old that sound insulation was almost non-existent. The sound of something hitting the floor couldn't be more obvious. Qin Chen and Li Tongyan clearly knew that the room above shouldn't have anyone in it. Chapter 71. Midnight Trip. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shoo, Qin Chen motioned to Li Tongyan. The little girl looked up in horror at the ceiling of the living room, her body shrinking into the sofa. In spite of how precocious she was, she had rarely faced this kind of situation. She had not completely gotten over the previous trauma left by the hoodlums who broke into her house, but now another pack was coming. Li Tongyan subconsciously moved to turn off the TV with the remote control in her hand, but Qin Chen stopped her. In autumn, the sky was quick to turn dark, so they had turned on the lights early. The thugs must have noticed this when they came, pretending like there was no one at home would on the contrary attract their attention. Qin Chen patted the back of the girl's hand and mouthed silently, "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Li Tongyan wiped the corners of her teary eyes and nodded. Inside the house, everything seemed to have gone on as normal without a change. Qin Chen turned around and went to the kitchen, signaling Jiang Shui to continue cooking. He wrote on a paper and showed it to Jiang Shui. "The thugs are already upstairs. From now on, all of us have to keep acting normally. Don't panic, they won't think that you're hiding right below them. This building had 4 floors and 8 units, they shouldn't be so crazy as to search through the whole building." Jiang Shui patiently cooked the dishes and brought them into the living room. Suppressing her trepidation, she wrote on the paper. "What should we do now?" As soon as the words fell, the shattering noise of broken glass came from upstairs, followed by heavy footsteps rumbling over the ceiling above their heads. Qin Chen's heart sank, that must be the weight of mechanical limbs. Ordinary people's feet couldn't produce such a heavy sound. Slowly, a strange rustling echoed from the ceiling. Qin Chen searched his mind for a similar sound. It was the sound of a metal zipper rubbing against the floor. At this moment, someone was lying down on the floor to eavesdrop on them. It was as if a devil had descended right behind you, softly breathing, swallowing the stench of blood in the dark of the night. Qin Chen sat on the sofa motionlessly. There was no need to make any move at a time like this. He just had to quietly wait for them to leave. If you were a prey facing an experienced hunter in the forest, you had to learn how to hide your scent. Don't even try to take risks, because the hunter had a gun. There was another sound of zipper rustling against the floor, and the person lying prone seemed to have gotten up. The heavy footsteps soon moved towards the kitchen. On the TV was the news broadcast that had just started airing, and the host's crisp voice reverberated across the room. Qin Chen instructed Jiang Shui. Try to contact Kunlun on WeChat, but don't make a call. You may be overheard. Jiang Shui took out her mobile phone, muted it, and then sent a message to Lu Yuan. But unexpectedly, Lu Yuan did not reply. Qin Chen wrote. Forget it, we can't count on Kunlun for now. Let's just keep waiting. Li Tongyun nestled in her mother's arms and slowly calmed down her emotions. She gently clinked on the porcelain bowl with her chopsticks, mimicking the noise she usually made when eating. However, they suddenly heard a door creaking open from the corridor. Hu Xiaonyo and his friends were chatting as they climbed upstairs. Qin Chen, Jiang Shui, and Li Tongyun glanced at one another. They all realized what was happening. Hu Xiaonyo's gang must have gone up to visit Jiang Shui's house. After a round of knocks, Wang Yun asked, Aunt Jiang Shui, are you at home? The next moment, various exclamations and collisions resounded from upstairs, accompanied by the thumps of heavy objects falling to the ground. The noises came and went quickly, it looked like they finished the battle in a flash. Then the four of them were dragged into the house. Qin Chen was shocked, he had apparently underestimated those suspects' combat power. Although those students were just ordinary people, the thugs had been way too fast in sorting them out. What should we do? Save them. Jiang Shui scribbled on the paper in panic. If those four were captured, everyone could guess what would happen next. Qin Chen looked at Jiang Shui, and then at Li Tongyun. The little girl suddenly tugged on his sleeve and squiggled on the paper. Brother Qin Chen, you're really smart, you must have figured out a way. She paused for a while before resuming to write. But you have to keep yourself safe. Qin Chen sighed. Hu Xiaonyo and the others shouldn't have died, with the way those criminals were acting, they should regard time travelers as a source of wealth and wouldn't kill them so easily. Then it wasn't too late. He promptly closed his eyes, pupils narrowing in the darkness beneath his eyelids. One by one, he examined the key information inside his mind. If anyone asked him what could be found within the days that had gone by, Qin Chen would calmly answer that there were long-forgotten treasures. According to the reports, there are still 9 suspects on the run this time. Hello classmate, do you know Lu Dezhu? For transfer students came from High City, Qin Chen seemed to have found something. What did Lu Dezhu tell him in the confinement room? After Kunlun learned of the whereabouts of those people from Zhou, they made an ambush outside the school ahead of time. The person in charge called Jing Yuandong said that they would send someone to protect me. Qin Chen reopened his eyes. He turned his back and took out the communication device to send Lu Dezhu a message. Take a taxi to apartment number 12 in Courtyard 4, on Xingshu Road and squat in front of the building. Go now. Lu Dezhu immediately replied his text. Boss, what is this for? Why do you want me to squat there? Qin Chen noncommittally replied. Remember to tell Hu Xiaonyo that the first transaction has been completed. Tell him to pay with a gold bar. Lu Dezhu was stunned when he received the message. What did this mean? How did Hu Xiaonyo suddenly get involved? But he still answered. Okay, I'll leave now. Qin Chen finally breathed a sigh of relief. He wasn't trying to bring harm to Lu Dezhu by ordering him to come over. It was because he realized that a time traveler of little importance like Jiang Shui might not be able to contact Kunlun, but Lu Dezhu would definitely be able to. He didn't mean for Lu Dezhu to contact them directly, Kunlun must have already planted people around him. What Qin Chen needed was not Lu Dezhu, but for Lu Dezhu to bring Kunlun along. Gradually, a girl's crying voice faintly crept down from upstairs. It seemed like someone had woken up. In Xinglong district, several Kunlun spies who were keeping watch on Lu Dezhu's place were chatting. They saw Lu Dezhu sneaking out of the corridor. After looking around to make sure nobody was following him, he dashed outside the district and jumped into a taxi parked at the gate. A Kunlun member whispered into the headset, "Attention, the sparrow has flown, the sparrow has flown, the sparrow flew into Eagle's car." On this mysterious night, Lu Dezhu restlessly sat in the back seat of the taxi and rushed, "Mister, please hurry up and drive to Courtyard 4, on Xingshu Road." Lu Yuan's voice was relayed through the headset. "Sparrow has given the address, everyone follow up. He's behaving abnormally. Wrench, Hawthorne, you guys should speed up over there and look for a place to hide in advance." Lu Dezhu didn't have the slightest idea of how this movement affected so many people. Chapter 72. Explosion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A taxi slowly stopped in front of Courtyard 4, on Xingshu Road. While Lu Dezhu was paying, the young driver casually asked, "That'll be 14 for the ride." "Say, this used to be the housing for government officials, what are you doing here?" Lu Dezhu scanned the QR code for payment and said without thinking, "I'm here to get the gold bar." All he could think about at this time was the gold bar, but he quickly regretted it as soon as the words came out of his mouth and quickly left the car. As he walked into the neighborhood, the driver put on a headset and said, calling Kunlun, "Sparrow said he's here for a gold bar." Lu Yuan, who had been long waiting in the shadows of the tree, put out his cigarette. "Gold bar. Did he make a deal with a time traveler?" "Perhaps. With his special status in the inner world, he could easily be useful to many people," the Kunlun member analyzed. "It's common to pay for resources in the inner world." "Captain Lu, wasn't there a case in Tai City recently where the buyer didn't make the payment after taking the medicine? The seller nearly killed that guy, and our co-workers there had to deal with this troublesome case." "Yeah," Lu Yuan nodded, "it's possible. Damn, I had to guard him in the middle of the night in case he got kidnapped, yet he's here to get gold bars." In the night, Lu Dezhu carefully walked into the neighborhood while looking around carefully, much like a thief. Except, he didn't know that many pairs of eyes were silently watching him. As Lu Dezhu walked toward apartment number 12, more than 20 Kunlun members circled closely in the shadows, with him in the center. Lu Yuan watched coldly from the side, thinking that Mr. Zheng would never recruit such a guy. Now he was wondering if Li Shutong was blind too when he chose Lu Dezhu. The reality was always a slap in the face. Just this morning, Lu Dezhu was still showing off his abnormal power in front of the press, and naturally, people thought the only way to get abilities in Prison 18 would be from Li Shutong. Why'd he squat down? What is he doing here beside apartment number 12? One of the Kunlun members asked. Lu Dezhu looked over and saw that Lu Dezhu was indeed squatting next to apartment number 12, motionlessly. His two hands were crossed in his sleeves like an idiot waiting for a roasted sweet potato to be served. "What is this kid trying to do now?" asked someone. "Shoo," said Lu Yuan suddenly. He sensed a hint of danger. As time passed by, the entire world seemed to fall into silence. At this time, a man wearing a black jacket walked out from the shadows of the apartment's entrance. He had a Bluetooth earbud in his ear. While being alert, he looked around silently, his right hand was hovering around his waist. The man's palm was out in the open, and one could clearly see his strong and powerful mechanical arm. As his glance swept across, he also turned and saw Lu Dezhu, who was squatting nearby and looking at him sternly. Instantly, as the two pairs of eyes met, the surrounding atmosphere became eerily quiet. The thug looked at Lu Dezhu. As if the air became thick, it contained an invisible sense of oppression. After confirming again that no one was around, he walked toward Lu Dezhu, and the hydraulic gears under his clothes resonated in the air. Lu Dezhu just stared as the mysterious figure approached him. The thug walked while started chatting with Lu Dezhu, friend, how come you seem so familiar? You are. Lu Dezhu was silent for 2 seconds before he twitched his mouth and started drooling from the corner of his lips. Ah 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 ah. He started walking away as if he didn't know what was going on. The thug pressed on his Bluetooth earbud, found someone suspicious. As he was talking, Lu Dezhu walked faster and faster until he started running in the end. Ah 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 ah. Soon, he disappeared. The thug was about to chase after him, but after a few steps, he stopped and turned back into the apartment building. The shadows under the trees swayed. In the dark, Lu Yuan looked up. At the same time, behind a second-floor window, another person was also looking at him coldly. They found us. Surround them. Lu Yuan said firmly, be careful, they can be very dangerous. Kunlun members slowly approached apartment number 12, but suddenly, the sound of broken glass came from the other side of the building, and the person staring at Lu Yuan also turned around and disappeared into the room. Lu Yuan's expression changed, they're trying to escape from the back window. The person who appeared was surely the suspect they were after. As soon as Lu Yuan came here, he realized that Jiang Shui was living on the second floor. They split into 2 groups and wrapped in from both sides of the building. Just as Lu Yuan and his group turned around the corner, sparks burst out of a metal trash can. Then came a loud bang. Lu Yuan only had time to use his arms to cover his neck and head before he was knocked back by the powerful wind. The noise from the explosion soared through the air, and the metal trash can was in countless pieces. The criminals had long repaired the explosives. They sneaked it into the trash can before going up into Jiang Shui's apartment, so it could be used as a backup. In case they were found, they would break the back window to attract the pursuers while using the explosives to cause damage and chaos. With that, they could get more time to escape. This was carefully plotted, as if someone was looking at all this from behind the scenes, controlling where everything is going. Lu Yuan stood back up from the ground and patted a teammate beside him, are you alright? People slowly got up, and someone reported, we only have one person that got wounded in the legs by metal fragments, no other injuries. Everyone probably got a mild concussion, but no one had time to care about any of that at this time. We need to follow them, said Lu Yuan, if we lose them now, more time travelers would be in danger. Everyone quickly headed toward the back of the building, but Lu Yuan suddenly stopped, hold up. He felt that something was wrong. The criminals came to kidnap time travelers, but from what he was told, their mechanical limbs weren't high-grade ones, and they couldn't handle the shock of jumping down from the second floor. Even if they somehow were fine, they wouldn't be able to carry another person with them. Lu Yuan turned back. From the sound of glass breaking to the person on the second floor turning back and the explosives along the way, everything was distracting them away from the front door. With the threat of explosives, no one would be thinking straight, and they would naturally head toward their original target. That way, when they were all at the back of the building, the criminals would exit easily from the front doors. Quick, get to the front door, the hallway exit, yelled Lu Yuan furiously. One of the members asked, Captain Lu, are we not going after them anymore? Just follow my orders. Eagle, are you here yet? A voice came from the earbuds, almost there. Lu Yuan started running at full speed because he knew that if he had the wrong decision, he would have just given the criminals a path to escape from the windows. But he was confident in his decision. Chapter 73. Beat him up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lu Yuan sprinted madly, feeling excited despite the pain. Within the obscurity, he had finally locked onto the most important clue. Glancing down, he saw that his thigh was bleeding. There were fragments of metal stuck in the flesh. As it turned out, he was also injured. But at this moment, the aching wound was trivial compared to the prospect of catching the criminal. When he limped back to the front gate, he happened to see a van slowly approaching the entrance of apartment number 12. As expected, 4 people carrying black burlap sacks leisurely walked out of the corridor. Those sacks appeared to be very heavy, even the fabrics were pulled and stretched out of form. The head of the pack coldly looked at Lu Yuan. It was a little unexpected that Lu Yuan could react so quickly, but he ultimately paid it no mind. They tossed the black sacks into the van and proceeded to sit inside. One of them stayed out of the car, pulled out a handgun from behind his back and aimed at Lu Yuan. The muscles in Lu Yuan's legs burst with strength, completely changing his trajectory. His body shifted ahead to the right. He had actually predicted the opponent's move in advance and dodged the first shot. People couldn't move faster than a bullet, but they could move faster than the muzzle. Lu Yuan's sneakers were instantly torn apart, exposing his toes. He ignored it and shouted with all his might, "Eagle, go knock him out for me." Then he sprang to his feet. From the end of the street came the roaring sound of an engine. Inside the taxi that drifted out of nowhere, Eagle stepped on the accelerator to its maximum limit. The trunk of the taxi swaying due to the force of inertia, Lu Yuan with his body suspended in the air, all geared up to launch an attack. If one could freeze this moment, it would certainly be significantly memorable. Just like a frame from a hot, blooded segment of life. Within the next second, the taxi rammed itself into the hood of the black van. Eagle slammed his head on the steering wheel and passed out. The gunman froze for an instant. When he turned back around, Lu Yuan's silhouette was right before his eyes, smashing into him like a cannonball. Before losing consciousness, he even heard the sound of bones breaking. One of his allies wanted to get off the van to help but was instead kicked back inside by Lu Yuan, who had already climbed up on top of it. His body bounced and crashed hard onto the other side of the van. The next moment, everyone nearby heard Lu Yuan's wrath. "Beat him up." In a spot hidden from Lu Yuan and the others, Qin Chen peered out the window through the gap in the curtain. He was silently pondering the fact that Lu Yuan was also a superhuman. But he couldn't determine whether the other had taken a genetic injection, or if he was an awakened or cultivator. Even if it was a genetic injection, there was still no way to know which type he had taken. There were many categories of genetic injections. For example, Li Corporation alone had 3 types, FDE, FDD, and Phi. What Qin Chen gave Lu Dezhu could maximize the development of offensive strength and lower body muscles to their full potential. It could increase your power and running speed. To put it simply, since Qin Chen knew Lu Dezhu would definitely spill as long as he got caught, he just had to make him run faster so others wouldn't be able to catch him. At this time, he saw the members of Kunlun gathering around after finally subduing all the criminals. An ambulance picked up the injured Lu Yuan along with Hu Xiaonyo, Zhang Tianjin, and the others. Based on Qin Chen's observation, the students had no obvious signs of injury, seemingly only knocked unconscious. Quite a few areas had been cordoned off, and professionals were checking all corners to see if there were still any explosives left by the criminals. This was a serious felony, for suspects had already been arrested, but there were 5 more still on the run. It also made Qin Chen fully realize that this group of people was far more cunning than he had imagined. Far from being comparable to ordinary skirmishers. Although individually, their fighting power was comparably weaker, they were organized and systematic in implementing their plan. Of course, Qin Chen suspected there was someone with considerable strength among the 5 remaining suspects. He turned back to smile at Jiang Shui and Li Tongyun, saying, "It's fine, it's over now. But we shouldn't go out for the time being, so let's just eat in peace." Jiang Shui looked at the young man in front of her. "Thank you, without you," Xiaoyun won a nickname, coming from the word Xiao, literally means little, usually used for people much younger than oneself, and Yun, the last character of her name, and I would have gotten into trouble. "I'll go and warm up the dishes first." When Jiang Shui finished cooking, the 3 of them had not dared eat, so the food was now cold. In the living room, Li Tongyun was staring at Qin Chen. She always felt that this brother was different from other people. No matter the time or place, he was able to turn calamities into miracles. "Brother Qin Chen, how did you get Kunlun to come?" said Li Tongyun, blinking her eyes. Qin Chen laughed, I summoned them with my mind. He knew he had revealed a lot of things today. Outsiders might not be able to figure out anything, but with these details, Li Tongyun would eventually guess what was happening behind the scenes. However, Qin Chen didn't seem to mind if the little girl found out some of his secrets. He patted her on the head and said, Are you still afraid? Just a little bit. Li Tongyun asked, Brother Qin Chen, I know you don't want to be discovered, but if I run into danger in the inner world, will you come to save me? Qin Chen thought for a while and answered, yes. Li Tongyun nodded contentedly, but soon after grumbled under her breath, It's fine if you don't reveal your identity to others, but to hide it even from me is too much. I'm just a kid. What bad intentions could a kid possibly have? Qin Chen smiled, not giving a response. A sophisticated hunter will disguise himself as prey. Danger had become a frequent companion ever since the inner world was unleashed upon them. Qin Chen always believed that before he could attain true power, pretending to be weaker was always the right choice. Tonight, Li Tongyun and Jiang Shui would definitely find it peculiar. How did he manage to call Kunlun over? They didn't know about Lu Dezhu coming to the scene, and this secret was also something Kunlun wouldn't casually reveal to the public. So for the time being, Li Tongyun wouldn't be able to connect the cause and effect together. But if one day she found out about Lu Dezhu, even if she couldn't completely guess the truth, she would get very close to it. Jiang Shui stood in the kitchen, her fingers still trembling slightly. Had Li Tongyun suddenly turned off the TV, had Qin Chen not reminded her to continue cooking, they would have been dead. Jiang Shui returned with the hot dishes. For some reason, this gentle aunt didn't seem to be too scared anymore, her face brimming with a smile. Time to eat. Too bad the two of you are not allowed to drink yet, otherwise, we really should open a bottle of beer to celebrate surviving this disaster. Li Tongyun joined in the fun and said, Brother Qin Chen isn't that young anymore, he can drink. Qin Chen took a bite of food, but his expression became strange. Upon seeing this, Jiang Shui hurriedly clipped a piece of egg into her mouth and immediately found out what was wrong. She had been too frightened while cooking and forgotten to put any salt in. Falling speechless, her face turned red. Qin Chen quickly said, It's normal to be afraid at that time, I was afraid as well. Li Tongyun muttered on the side, Who would believe that you were scared? The unappetizing food didn't dampen the atmosphere, instead, it made it livelier. Chapter 74. Truth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Second People's Hospital of Luo City, emergency room. The usually empty hospital wards were suddenly filled with Kunlun members. These young soldiers were like fierce dragons and tigers when catching criminals, but after the battle, they were all whining on the beds, asking the nurse to give them more painkillers. But most of them only had scratches. At first, the nurses would come and chat with them, but after seeing so many, the nurses almost wanted to give them a few missed shots on purpose. Later, they heard that these people were hurt when trying to save lives, so the nurses didn't actually do that. Soon they realized that these young men were actually in pain. In fact, the inner world had a term for this type of pain. Overload after effect. Normal people would have lactic acid accumulate in their bodies, making their muscles very sore. But people who got low-numbered genetic injections would feel more direct pain through their nerves. For example, if Lu Dezhu exercised too much, he would also feel paid, because he only got the FD.005 injection. ENVE. If he later got 004 and 003, then this aftereffect would gradually fade away. The nurse had never seen this before, but Hu Xiaoniu was familiar with it from what he had seen in the inner world. Although he never got a genetic injection himself, he knew how it worked. He thought to himself that Kunlun must have someone with high power in the inner world. Or else, how would they be able to get so many genetic injections in such a short amount of time? Mr. Zheng must hold an important position there. At this time, Lu Yuan was the last to be carried out of the ambulance. and one of the Kunlun members winked at him and said, "Captain Lu, we got you a separate nursing ward for you." Eagle said the nurse that took care of him in that room at that late time was a beautiful one. Eagle was the driver who crashed into the criminal's car and was also the one that rammed the SUV that day when Lu Dezhu was being kidnapped. Lu Yuan frowned and said, "What? No, arrange for me to go to Hu Xiaonyo's room." What? The Kunlun member was a little surprised, but that is the general ward, and it can get quite noisy. "I won't care about that," said Lu Yuan. "I still have some things that I need to sort out and ask my 4 new friends." "Right, ask the boss to do a search on their identity." "Yes, sir." Lu Yuan was pushed into the ward on a wheelchair after his wound was taken care of. The Kunlun member witnessed with his own eyes how Lu Yuan was calmly thinking the moment before entering the ward and started screaming as soon as he entered. Instantly playing the role of being just like all his other comrades, even when Lu Yuan got next to the bed next to Hu Xiaonyo's, he was still pretending to be twisting and turning on the bed in pain. Hu Xiaonyo hesitated and said to Lu Yuan, "Thank you for coming to save us." "Of course you have to thank us," Lu Yuan said as he rolled onto his side in pain. "Didn't you see how brave we were when trying to save you? We are organized to face the danger and remain calm when being pointed at by the criminals' guns." "Oh, right, you guys didn't see that because you were trapped in the sacks." Hu Xiaonyo. Lu Yuan sighed, "If Mr. Zheng saw that, I would definitely get a raise and a promotion." Hu Xiaonyo changed the topic, "But how did you know that we were in danger?" Lu Yuan answered, "It's not us that found you, it's someone else. We just happened to be there. Of course, arresting these criminals is part of our job." Hu Xiaonyo asked, "Someone else? Who?" "He had to follow the rules." "I can't say," Lu Yuan shook his head as he had to. A Kunlun member walked into the ward with a plastic bag and said, "There are 4 phones found in the car. Are these yours? Please double-check." Hu Xiaonyo found his in the bag. The phone wasn't touched, and it was said he left it. Opening it, he found a new message from Lu Dezhu, "That is our transaction. Remember to pay with a gold bar." Hu Xiaonyo was stunned. With this message, he was able to connect the dots. Lu Dezhu found out that he was in danger, and made an opportunity so that Kunlun could help him. This transaction must refer to how his life was saved. Instantly, his impression of Lu Dezhu skyrocketed. How did Lu Dezhu find out that he was in danger? How did he get Kunlun there? Hu Xiaonyo couldn't understand. Hu Xiaonyo thought about it and replied, "Thank you. I'm very grateful for what you have done, and I'll prepare double of what I promised before." Seeing this, Lu Dezhu was overjoyed. What a godly client was this! Doubling the pay without even the slightest hesitation. Was this what the rich people's world looked like? Also, he could finally get a gold bar this time without anyone noticing, right? At this time, Li Tongyun suddenly asked, "So, how did you end up getting caught?" "I thought at first that it was Jiang Shui and Li Tongyun that they were after, but I saw you instead of the sack. We had never even met before." That was one of the questions that Lu Yuan could not find an answer to. Lu Dezhu randomly came to Courtyard 4, on Xingshu Road today as if he was there waiting for the criminals to show up. The taxi that Lu Dezhu took to Xingshu Road was also from Kunlun. The driver was none other than Eagle, who smashed into the criminals later. When Eagle asked Lu Dezhu why he was here, Lu Dezhu mentioned gold bars. Then, at the scene of the crime in Li Tongyun's apartment, Jiang Shui and Li Tongyun weren't there, and instead, Hu Xiaonyo and the others were. There were just too many mysteries during this short period of time. Hu Xiaonyo explained, "We just moved into Unit 12 and are students at the Luo City Foreign Language School. Today, we went to visit our neighbors in 201 but met the thugs instead." "You aren't time travelers?" asked Lu Yuan. "So this just happened to be a coincidence?" "Yes, a coincidence," nodded Hu Xiaonyo. Lu Yuan smiled and didn't say anything else. A Kunlun staff member walked in with a stack of reports and handed them to Lu Yuan. We found Jiang Shui. She and her daughter were in a friend's room at the time. They also messaged you, but you didn't reply. Lu Yuan was stunned for a moment. What? I never received any messages. The staff paused and said, Captain Lu, you didn't pay for your phone bills. Oh, no. With the pitiful salary we get, I can't pay the bills until next month. Would this count as a work-related injury? I think so, right. Hu Xiaonyo was surprised that Kunlun members didn't have a good salary. Their jobs were some of the toughest and most dangerous ones available. Who would be willing to do this without good compensation? With the help of genetic injection and supernatural powers, one could earn at least $1 million a year just by being some rich person's bodyguard. This is the age of the rich. Hu Xiaonyo thought about it and said, if possible, I'm willing to donate to Kunlun as an individual. Stop. Lu Yuan interrupted, if you and another ordinary person were in danger at the same time, who would we rescue first? Of course, we would only go for the nearest, but if you were the nearest, Kunlun's impartiality would be doubted. I didn't say this, our boss did. Mr. Zheng has his ways of getting money. Lu Yuan started looking into the files, and there was information about Hu Xiaonyo and the other three. His father got him into Lu Dezhu's class, the Kunlun staff whispered beside his ear. Lu Yuan was shocked. So that's why the kid's that rich. He turned to stare at Hu Xiaonyo and said, Hu Xiaonyo, what's the weight of the gold bars that you're going to give to Lu Dezhu? Hu Xiaonyo was stunned. Seeing that Lu Yuan was staring at him, he felt that all his secrets were exposed. He paused for 2 seconds and said, 100 grams each. I'll give him 2. Lu Yuan figured it out. Hu Xiaonyo was Lu Dezhu's client. With the money and power that he has, purchasing resources from Lu Dezhu was not a surprise. He said to the Kunlun staff, register all 4 of them. They are time travelers, I guarantee it. Lu Yuan was confident that this must be the truth. Chapter 75. Outside the stage you are listening at novelfull.audio. Lu Yuan was thrilled. He felt he had basically figured out the relationship between Lu Dezhu and Hu Xiaonyo, as well as the circumstances surrounding the incident tonight. He immediately sent Jing Yuandong the result of his investigation. Hu Xiaonyo had invited Lu Dezhu to trade, and in the process of collecting the gold bars, Lu Dezhu incidentally led Kunlun to a confrontation with the fugitives. Hu Xiaonyo and his friends were all time travelers, so this meant that Lu Dezhu had already obtained the qualifications to trade with other time travelers. However, while Lu Yuan was eagerly waiting for the praise, Jing Yuandong's reply poured a bucket of cold water on him. Your analysis is wrong. Lu Yuan was stumped. Boss, what part of it is wrong? After Hu Xiaonyo made an appointment with Lu Dezhu, he went to visit his neighbor instead of waiting at home. Will you visit your neighbor right before making an important transaction? Asked Jing Yuandong. No, that's not logical behavior, Lu Yuan realized as his boss spoke. Boss, so what you're saying is Hu Xiaonyo didn't know Lu Dezhu would come, and that they didn't make any agreement at all. Yes, Jing Yuandong continued, if you were in Lu Dezhu's shoes and someone was asking you for a favor, would you be able to squat outside and wait more than 20 minutes for that person without getting angry? No, I'd think that he's too arrogant. The reason I broke up with my ex-girlfriend was also because she was too tardy. Every time we went out, I had to wait for her for half an hour, replied Lu Yuan. Jing Yuandong asked, then what if I'm the one who asked you to wait for half an hour? Will you do it? Lu Yuan timidly answered, you're the boss. How could I dare to? Wait, you mean Lu Dezhu also has a boss? Jing Yuandong said, do you still feel that your previous conclusion is right? Lu Yuan was enlightened at once. Yes, he had indeed found a lot of clues, but he failed to analyze them carefully. Although the detail about Lu Dezhu taking gold bars as payment matched with Hu Xiaonu's statement, for all they knew, Lu Dezhu might just be pretending, deliberately creating some kind of coincidence to mislead outsiders. In fact, the reason why Lu Dezhu's thoughts were full of gold bars was also because Qin Chen mentioned it to him. At this moment, Zheng Yuandong concluded. You came to the wrong assumption because someone is deliberately hiding a clue. This clue is the most obscure, but also the most crucial. Whoever told Lu Dezhu to come to Courtyard 4, on Xingshu Road was the one who found the tracks of the suspects, and also the one who could make Lu Dezhu readily wait for more than 20 minutes. Lu Yuan responded in a daze. Tonight, an unknown individual is standing behind the scenes. A chill abruptly crept up his back. He had been earnestly performing on stage without knowing there was someone quietly watching the play in the darkness outside the stage. You had no idea who he was, you didn't even realize he was watching you. Zheng Yuandong replied to his message, this individual should be the third time traveler in prison 18 that I told you about. He controlled Lu Dezhu and wove the thread to connect us all. But don't worry, at least this person seems to be amicable for now. Lu Yuan felt that his brain was not very useful. Perhaps only someone like the boss could deal with the mysterious time traveler. Boss, how about I try to interrogate Lu Dezhu? Maybe we'll get to find out who it is. Zheng Yuandong deterred, that would turn what was originally an ally into an enemy. Countdown to 3.50.00 at 11:50 p.m., Qin Chen still had not fallen asleep. He was lying silently on the living room floor, on the mattress Jiang Shui had spread out for him. Jiang Shui's house was trashed and there were still 5 fugitives at large, so the mother and daughter would temporarily settle in Qin Chen's house. In the dilapidated and dim room, there was an occasional waft of damp odor. A few ants would crawl out of the kitchen from time to time, but Qin Chen didn't do anything about it. Jiang Shui had thoroughly cleaned up the house, tacitly thanking Qin Chen for his protection. Qin Chen couldn't sleep, anyone who experienced as much as he did at once would find it difficult to fall asleep. For the time being, he reviewed every single thing that happened tonight, and confirmed that no one would be able to discover his role for the time being. Even if Lu Dezhu were to be caught and tortured, they wouldn't be able to uncover the identity of the mysterious figure controlling him behind the scenes. What happened tonight seemed to have nothing to do with him, but all the causes and effects were linked together because of him. This kind of feeling was very fascinating. Just like in a game of chess, he had always been more suitable for the role of the player rather than the piece. Neither was he willing to become a pawn. A rustling sound came from the bedroom. Li Tongyun slipped out of the door in a nightdress and sat down on the floor beside Qin Chen. Brother Qin Chen, you're still awake too. Qin Chen looked at her with his arms folded under his head. Why aren't you sleeping yet? What about your mom? Li Tongyun whispered, my mom is sleeping. Have you considered the thing I asked you about before? Qin Chen asked her, what thing? Stop pretending, your memory is so good, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, Li Tongyun counted with her fingers. Today is September 29th, tomorrow is September 30th, and the day after tomorrow is National Day. Qin Chen seemed to have just recalled the matter, oh, this. Let's go out and play. So many things have happened. Let's do something to relax. Her eyes sparkled with excitement when she mentioned playing outside. If you want to go play outside, then just go. Why do you have to bring me along? Qin Chen couldn't help but laugh. Li Tongyun lowered her head and said, if you don't go, my mother also won't go. She said it's too dangerous to go out now, but I think it's more dangerous to stay in the city. On the contrary, nothing will happen if you go out. The news also said there are 5 people they haven't caught yet. I'm sure these people are still targeting the time travelers within the city. Qin Chen thought this was quite reasonable, but he asked again, you really only want to go out to play? Fine. It's not only that, if I don't go out on National Day, I'll definitely have to go to cram school again, Li Tongyun said, her face drooping, that I already have a ton of homework. If you add cram school on top of everything, I'm really going to die. At every parent-teacher meeting, Zhang Qiaoyun's mother will come out and babble about how good Zhang Qiaoyun's cram school is. She kept doing it until my mom also signed me into that cram school. Qing Chen was stunned. Considering Li Tongyun's intelligence, cleverness, and maturity, this was an unexpectedly normal problem among children. Despite the emergence of transmigration, children would still not be able to escape cram school. Even a direct descendant of the Li family in the inner world was no exception. He laughed and said, "Where do you want to go? I can't guarantee that I'll be able to convince your mother." "You don't have to, you just have to agree, and I'll be the one to convince her." Li Tongyun stared at Qing Chen with full determination. "She just doesn't think it's safe to go out, but if you come with us, it will certainly be safe." What a powerful argument. Li Tongyun continued to speak, "We won't go too far, just choose a place around Luo City. Like Lao Jun Mountain, for example. I heard that the sunrise there is very beautiful." For Li Tongyun, the place wasn't important. The most critical thing was being able to escape the city and the cram school. Qing Chen looked at her expectant little eyes and smiled, "Okay, I promise you, but if your mom doesn't agree, then I can't help you anymore." "That's a deal." Li Tongyun contentedly picked up the tail of her nightdress and trod back into the bedroom. At the same time, he received a text from Nanjingchen. Qing Chen, are you there?" Qing Chen asked, "What are you up to this late at night? National Day is coming. Wang Yun invited some classmates to watch the sunrise together on Laojun Mountain. Are you going?" Nanjingchen said on WeChat. "They say Hu Xiaoniu, Zhang Tianjin, and Lu Dezhu from the next class are also going." A lot of people heard about Lu Dezhu going, so they also wanted to go. Nanjingchen added, "It said that Hu Xiaoniu will pick up the tab and everyone else won't have to pay a penny." Qing Chen was taken aback. Could there be such a coincidence? They were also going to Laojun Mountain. The reason those four suddenly organized this trip was most probably to use it as an opportunity to deepen their friendship with Lu Dezhu. After all, Lu Dezhu had just saved their lives. However, Wang Yun did not invite him but invited Nanjingchen. This was rather odd. It stood to reason that after successfully latching onto Lu Dezhu, she had no more use for both Qing Chen and Nanjingchen. But although she had abandoned Qing Chen, she was still very enthusiastic about Nanjingchen. It didn't make sense. He asked Nanjingchen through a message, "Did she find out that you're a time traveler?" Nanjingchen refuted, "I'm not a time traveler." Qing Chen helplessly replied, "Alright, you're not." This guy usually has the words, "time traveler," practically stamped across his face. Wang Yun must have already discovered Nanjingchen's secret. That was why she invited this fool. Chapter 76. Creating Hatred. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Countdown 17.00.00 in the morning, as the chirping of the birds came from outside the window. Qing Chen turned over in his bed as he heard the sound of cooking coming from the kitchen. He sat up and saw that the bedroom door was closed. Jiang Shui had already started making breakfast. Jiang Shui saw him and smiled, "Looks like you cook often at home, you've all kinds of seasonings here." "Yeah, it's too expensive to eat out," replied Qing Chen. Jiang Shui said, "Where are your parents? Leaving you here alone is so irresponsible of them. Don't worry, I'll cook for you from now on. You should just focus on school." "Oh right, are you taking any tutoring classes? I can recommend you one." "What?" Qing Chen thought, how did tutoring get into the conversation? No wonder Li Tongyun wanted to escape. But honestly, there wasn't a need for him to attend tutoring classes. Last year, Qing Chen got a part-time job at night, and he would always catch up on sleep during class. At that time, if Qin Chen suddenly looked up when the math teacher Tian Hailong was lecturing, Tian Hailong would just wonder if she had just made a mistake somewhere. Jiang Shui smiled and said to Qin Chen, "Xiao Yun said you promised to go to Laojun Mountain with us." "Yeah," Qin Chen nodded. "You're spoiling her too much. I didn't even agree to bring her out yet, but now that you promised, she's become even more adamant about going." Although Jiang Shui was chastising, she still spoke with a soft voice. Qin Chen thought about it and said, "It's nice to take a relaxing trip after what happened recently. She's still young, and this might be too much for her already." "Yeah," nodded Jiang Shui, "we can go catch a bus after you come home from school today. It's only a 2-hour ride. Tomorrow we'll go hike to see the sunrise and return home after that. I found a couple of vacation BB with good reviews online." Qin Chen looked up at her. She obviously had already planned everything out. He asked, "If we're only staying for a night, would that be too quick?" Jiang Shui said, "I want to let Xiao Yun come back in time for tutoring classes. But if you want to stay for a few more days, I can just let Xiao Yun take a longer break." Qin Chen came to class earlier and found Nan Gingchen and Wang Yun chatting quietly while Bai Weiner was still not there. The four of them didn't get hurt much yesterday. They were just knocked out and packed into sacks. After being rescued, they went to a hospital for a checkup and were sent home. At this time, Wang Yun was telling Nan Gingchen about what happened to them yesterday, and Nan Gingchen would comfort her every once in a while. This made it seem like this was a date. Qin Chen suddenly felt that he missed a lot of things while he was skipping classes. It was just like when he had to go to the restroom during a movie. Before he left, the male and female protagonists were still planning out their warm future, and after he came back, the male protagonist somehow became the female protagonist's long-lost uncle. A magical progression. He would even doubt if it was the movie plot's problem or if it was his trip to the restroom that had gone wrong. Nan Gingchen suddenly asked, "Qin Chen, have you decided if you're going to Laojun Mountain?" Before Qin Chen could even answer, Wang Yun reminded quietly, "Xiao Nan, too," referring to Nan Gingchen, "our group is full. Hu Xiaoniu only got a bus with 47 seats, and we have 2 classes of classmates. There are still 4 or 5 people that can't go." Qin Chen smiled and said to Nan Gingchen, "It's okay. I have other plans for the break." "Alright," Nan Gingchen nodded, "then I'm staying as well." "What are you doing during the National Day break?" "Count me in." Wang Yun's expression changed subtly, but Qin Chen patted on Nan Gingchen's shoulder and said, "You got friends paying for the trip. It would be a waste if you didn't go. I would have gone if it weren't for how busy I am." "Right, so when is the group leaving?" "Tomorrow," said Wang Yun. She was relieved that Nan Gingchen didn't insist on staying back. "Tomorrow at 7, we'll meet at school. Next time we'll make sure to bring everyone." Qin Chen was unconcerned with the courtesies, but he was relieved that their schedules were still apart. After all, there was only one place to see the sunrise on Laojun Mountain. If they all left tonight, then they might meet tomorrow at the Golden Summit observation deck the next morning. After yesterday night's kidnapping, Lu Dezhu's status seemed to have risen yet again. As soon as he go to class, Hu Xiaoniu, Zhang Tianjin, and Bai Weiner all gathered beside him, whispering excitedly. However, Lu Dezhu didn't seem that enthusiastic. He looked around as if he was trying to find someone. Hu Xiaoniu was the first to notice. He asked, curious, "Brother Lu, who are you looking for?" This new name seemed to have brought him even closer. It took a while for Hu Xiaoniu to think about what to call him, mainly because the name was too distinctive. Calling him Lu Dezhu would seem too much like an average classmate. Dezhu just felt too impolite. Zhuzi would make them all sound like farmers. What? Lu Dezhu came back to his senses, "Don't worry about it. It's nothing." Only Lu Dezhu knew that his mysterious boss was somewhere looking at him. This feeling of being watched made him quite uncomfortable, but he did get everything he wanted, from being a school star to improved life in prison. It looked like his boss was a dependable person. Suddenly, as if Lu Dezhu thought about something, he told Hu Xiaoniu seriously, "There's one thing that you must be aware of. Never make enemies with anyone in the school." Hu Xiaoniu was confused. "Brother Lu, what do you bring this up?" "Nothing," Lu Dezhu sighed. He just didn't want them to accidentally expose his boss and ruin the business. BL.net Meanwhile, He Jinqiu walked slowly in Courtyard 4, on Xingshu Road. He stopped on the sidewalk and looked up at the French parasol trees. The parasol tree leaves, which had already started turning yellow, started swaying down in the autumn breeze. He Jinqiu was lost in his thoughts, and he stood there for more than an hour as if nothing else mattered more than the beauty of the scenery. After a long time, someone asked from behind, "What are you doing in a place like this?" He Jinqiu turned around and saw Zheng Yuandong, who was dressed in a clean tunic suit, smiling. "What is the reason for this?" "Mr. Zheng is here as well, and we must have been thinking of the same thing." Chapter 77 ACE.099 You are listening at novelfull.audio. The representatives of Jiu Zhou and Kunlun stood facing each other under the phoenix tree. A young man and a middle-aged man. One was wearing a gray suit, the other a black tunic suit. The phoenix tree between them was like a partition between two worlds, creating a strong and stark contrast. Former comrades in arms, as well as current rivals. "I'm very curious, you stay far away in the capital yet come to Luo City twice a month. What brings you here under the phoenix tree?" Zheng Yuandong solemnly questioned him. He Jinqiu smiled and said, "Boss Zheng must be joking. Kunlun successfully captured 4 criminals last night. How could Jiu Zhou pass up the opportunity to take a peek and send their congratulations? This is the duty of Kunlun, there's no need for congratulations," Zheng Yuandong replied indifferently. "What's more, there are still 5 people at large. Now is not the time to celebrate. Kunlun's duty," He Jinqiu chuckled, "is Boss Zheng warning me about Jiu Zhou breaking the rules." Both organizations have been assigned different roles right from their respective establishments. Kunlun would not interfere foreign affairs, and likewise Jiu Zhou would avoid get in the way of domestic affairs. Just like the distinction between the CIA and the FBI, even if the CIA had control over 70% of foreign intelligence, and could even independently carry out small-scale warfare, they still had no control over domestic matters. The same went for Jiu Zhou. But He Jinqiu never seemed to intend to abide by this rule. There were 19 cities in which the stations of both organizations overlapped, and unexpected conflicts would arise time and again. In the capital, the two sides almost clashed while vying over a time traveler, a girl named Jiu Ran. He Jinqiu asked all of a sudden, "Does Boss Zheng not feel anxious?" "Anxious about what?" Zheng Yuandong asked back. "Once He Xiao finishes setting up the group chat, time travelers from all over the country will come pouring into the hands of Jiu Zhou. How can you ensure that you could fulfill your duties when there's no one left in Kunlun?" As he spoke, a leaf fell from the phoenix tree, spinning in descent. He Jinqiu lightly pinched it in his hand. "I do know that Boss Zheng has the ability to obtain genetic injections, so even ordinary soldiers can be of great use. But have you told those kids in Kunlun about the side effects of those genetic injections?" Zheng Yuandong said, "Each person has a different choice. Once you have chosen, there's no more room for regrets. By the way, why did Kunlun classify all of Lu Dezhu's information as top secret?" He Jinqiu asked, although he did transmigrate right next to Li Shatong, a big figure in the inner world. "I get the feeling that something's not quite right." Zheng Yuandong shook his head and said, "I can't answer that." In a flash, He Jinqiu took out a gold coin with his fingertips, flipping it between his bony and slender fingers. The gold coin kept rolling from the seam of his pinky to his forefinger, back and forth, as if it were alive. A ring formed by ears of wheat was printed on the heads of the coin, while two crossed swords adorned the tails. He stared at Jing Yuandong and asked, I personally went to observe Lu Dezhu, so I know he definitely wouldn't be able to earn your acknowledgement. If that's the case, why do you feel the need to raise his classification to the highest level? Is it to protect him, or to protect someone else through protecting him? Or are you perhaps doing it to mislead me? On the ground where they were standing, the fallen leaves suddenly swirled around, as if moved by an imperceptible wind. He Jinxiu couldn't figure out the story behind last night since Kunlun had blocked out all the information. However, he could comprehend Zheng Yuandong. Old Captain, He Jinxiu stated, the one you want to protect isn't Lu Dezhu, right? Instead of answering the question, Zheng Yuandong looked at the coin in his hand and smiled. It's unknown which superhuman left behind the forbidden item ACE.099, also called the gold coin of truth, for it has the ability to determine truth from lie. The gold coin fell stably into He Jinxiu's hand. He said in amazement, Old Captain, you really know about everything. Although the forbidden item ACE.099 has disappeared for a long time, its function is not secret, Zheng Yuandong replied. Oh well, it looks like I can't get any answers today, but, He Jinxiu's smile deepened, it's not like I didn't gain anything. He Jinxiu turned around and left. The gold coin in his hand was faintly howling. It wasn't until he sat inside a black limousine parked beside Xingshu Road that he composedly took out a 100-gram gold bar from his arms. He Jinxiu gently put the gold bar on the forbidden item ACE.099. The gold bar instantly melted like a liquid and poured into the gold coin, but the size of the coin did not change at all. Gradually, the surface of the gold coin fluidly flowed, just like a calm lake. He Jinxiu softly spoke, my debt has been paid. In the blink of an eye, the gold coin solidified. Its pattern turned back into a ring of wheat, restoring its silence. He Jinxiu gazed out the window. He brought along the gold coin of truth, but Boss Ching didn't give him any chance to pry out an answer. The prerequisite is to roll the gold coin on your fingers, it's indeed a bit too conspicuous, he sighed. The driver glanced at the rearview mirror and asked, Boss, our people have not been able to track the whereabouts of those 5 fugitives. I heard that Kunlun managed to obtain some clues from the interrogation. Do you want to find a way to snatch them? He Jinxiu shook his head and said, this is Boss Zheng's home ground. Let him handle it by himself. Since tomorrow was National Day, the students had no motivation to continue studying in the afternoon. Everyone was busy chatting about the trip to Laojun Mountain. At 3 o'clock, Tian Hailong, the head teacher, suddenly announced that they would have an early day off. Although I'm giving you guys an early holiday, I hope everyone understands that you're already in your second year. So, adjust your mentality and don't play around too wildly. Qin Chen didn't expect that he would have to skip class today. He quickly got up and left the classroom and got on the bus to Laojun Mountain after meeting up with Jiang Shui and Li Tongyan. Li Tongyan was carrying her small school bag filled with snacks inside. However, Qin Chen was unaware of Hu Xiaonyo's entourage changing their schedule due to the early release from class. At 5 p.m., their rented bus parked in front of the school gate. At 5:20, the second-year students from classes 3 and 4 first went home to pack up their things, and then gathered back in front of the bus. Someone asked Nan Gingchen, Xiaonan, where's Qin Chen? Is he not coming? Someone else said, that's right, it looks like he's not in our travel group, Nan Gingchen sighed. He said he had other plans for National Day, so he can't go with us. Not far away, 2 Kunlun members who had been tailing Lu Dezhu by car observed the students and immediately reported to the headquarters, there's something unusual about Lu Dezhu. It seems like they're renting a bus to travel somewhere. Is there any further instruction? Should we send some reinforcements? The colleague at the headquarters replied, the road team received news that some suspected fugitives showed up in Meng County, north of Luo City, seemingly about to leave the city. The road team is now pursuing them and instructs the two of you to follow Lu Dezhu. There won't be additional reinforcements for the time being. Several of our brothers are injured and resting. Wait for them to return on duty tomorrow. They'll go to replace you as soon as possible. We'll trouble you guys to work hard for today. Alright, no problem, the two Kunlun members responded. The suspects appeared in Meng County, whereas Laojun Mountain was located in Z County. One in the north, one in the south. Chapter 78. Before the action, you are listening at novelfull.audio. As Hu Xiaonyo, Lu Dezhu, and the other classmates were gathering, Qin Chen was already heading for Laojun Mountain. The place was packed. Li Tongyan got off the bus first and stretched her arms in the parking lot. The small backpack loosely hung on her back as if it was about to fall at any moment, but it never did. Jiang Shui was also about to get off the bus with her, but just as she was about to step off, Qin Chen suddenly held her back on the bus from behind. What's the matter, Qin Chen? Jiang Shui almost slipped from the grab. She looked back at the teen and saw that his eyes were fixed on someone outside the window. Jiang Shui hesitated and said, "Is there danger?" Qin Chen silently looked at the outside. At that time, they saw 5 people with backpacks stepping off of a black Buick van nearby. All of them had sunglasses and were dressed in various casual attire, with the exception of identical black boots. Those were the boots that the criminals wore when they were in Courtyard 4, on Xingshu Road. It was as if they bought them together in bulk. On the bus, the elderly lady behind them got impatient and said, "Aren't you getting off? If not, get out of the way." Qin Chen ignored her. It wasn't until he made sure that the 5 walked into the park gates that he turned to apologize to the passengers behind them. If a person could remember everything in their life, they would never believe in coincidences. Too many things happened in the name of coincidence that was filled with ulterior motives. The same boots, the same people. Qin Chen seemed to realize something, but he still wasn't sure. For sure, the 5 of them didn't come here for a vacation. If that were the case, there wouldn't have been any arrest warrants issued. There was only one way up and down the mountain, and if their traces were found here, it would be hard for them to escape. Criminals as smart as them would not place themselves in this situation. They must have come for the time travelers. Just recently, news from North America reported that a time traveler brought back an anti-cancer drug that proved to be effective. Normal anti-cancer targeted drugs would cost around 10,000 a bottle, which could last about a month. But this bottle that the time traveler brought back was auctioned off for an astronomical $10 million. The winning bidder was not wealthy individual fighting cancer, but rather a pharmaceutical company that bought it for research purposes. As a matter of fact, this targeted drug wasn't at all unique, or else. Other time travelers have also brought back the exact same ones. Otherwise, the bottle likely has sold for a couple billion. On the day that the company won the bid for the drug, its stocks rose by 32%. Tremendous commercial value exists between the two worlds. The rich would pay for their safety, the tech giants would pay for the technology, some would pay just to hit the headlines. This noticeable value of money sparked an enormous chain of interests. And there will always be some people willing to take great risks and commit some crimes. It was getting dark at Laojun Mountain. The crowds were still pouring into the gates and soon covered up the criminals. After Qin Chen got off the bus, Jiang Shui quickly grabbed Li Tongyan's hand and asked, "What's wrong, Qin Chen? What did you see?" Jiang Shui had a pair of silky gloves on just to cover up her mechanical limbs. "I saw 5 people who are most likely criminals at large," said Qin Chen, looking around. "But worry not, they aren't after you, or else, we wouldn't be able to get off the car." Jiang Shui asked, "Then what should we do?" "Retreat. This bus that we just was already the last of the day. There's no way we'll be able to get back now," explained Qin Chen. "When you were on the news, they accidentally revealed your home address, but they didn't publish any of your pictures, so we're safe for now." They weren't rich like Hu Xiaoniu, so they took the bus. Hu Xiaoniu, on the other hand, got a charter bus with no specific time restraints. Li Tongyun said quietly beside them, "Mom, we should trust brother Qing Chen." Qing Chen said, "Let's stay here tonight, and tomorrow, we'll catch the first bus heading back to Luo City." Arriving at the BB that Jiang Shui had gotten, Qing Chen didn't go to his room but stayed with Jiang Shui and Li Tongyun. He first went into the bathroom and messaged Lu Dezhu. "Stay in your home for the entire 7-day break. Don't go anywhere." Qing Chen didn't say specifically to not come to Laojun Mountain to avoid exposing himself. He thought that as long as Lu Dezhu wasn't coming, Hu Xiaoniu would probably cancel this trip. However, Lu Dezhu didn't reply. Qing Chen returned to the room and closed the curtains, then stood quietly behind the curtains looking at the surroundings. A few hours passed, and he still stood there tirelessly. Seeing that he'd been there for a long time, Jiang Shui asked, "Are you tired, Xiao Chen? You can rest, I will be your lookout." Qing Chen shook his head and said, "You don't know what they look like, Aunt Jiang Shui. Can you cook us a bowl of instant noodles and bring me some beef jerky from the backpack? I'm quite hungry." It wasn't that he wanted to eat something, but he noticed that if he didn't mention eating, Jiang Shui and Li Tongyun would probably have been too nervous to eat for the whole night. They could hear music, singing, and laughing from the BB next to theirs. Compared to the joyful atmosphere of next door, their place seemed desolate. Li Tongyun quietly pulled up a chair next to Qing Chen and used her little hands to massage his neck and shoulders. "Brother Qing Chen, take a break. If you already said that they aren't coming for us, then why are you still so nervous?" Qing Chen shook his head and had no intention of resting. "I'm fine, don't worry." Jiang Shui looked at the teenager from the back, and for some reason, she felt safe with him. He said, "Should we?" "Shoo." Qing Chen interrupted before Jiang Shui could finish. At that moment, he could see the familiar figures walking past their window. They saw the two thugs walking slowly through the street while looking around alertly. They both had a radio clipped on their shirt, and one of them was speaking into it with a serious expression. While walking, both of them had their right hand on their waist. After they walked out of his sight, Qing Chen looked down at the time. 11.55, countdown. 00.05.00, the last 5 minutes. Qing Chen frowned. The criminals were already in a state of alert. It was the alertness people would have before a battle. "Their target might be the hours next to ours," said Qing Chen. Jiang Shui was stunned. "There are a lot of them in there." "Yeah." Qing Chen left the window and went back into the bathroom. His message had been sent for a few hours already, and Lu Dezhu still hasn't given a reply. Chapter 79. Lure the tiger away from the mountain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Jiang Shui suddenly spoke, "It's time to transmigrate, Xiaochen. Is there anything I can do to help you in the inner world?" The meaning concealed within this sentence implied that she actually knew Qing Chen was a time traveler. But this was not important, because he had indeed revealed too many clues the night he saved those people. Qing Chen thought for a moment and said, "It's better for Aunt Jiang Shui to not get involved in this kind of thing. I could probably figure out a solution by the time we return." Standing at the side, Li Tongyun blinked her eyes. "What are you guys talking about? I don't understand." Qing Chen glanced at her and felt a little funny. So far, it was still this little girl who was the best at hiding. Aside from himself, no one else seemed to know she was also a time traveler. At the same time in Meng County, just north of Luo City, Lu Yuan led his team to cross the rugged mountain road to Dazhuang village. All 7 off-road cars were full of mud splatters. In this village, a total of 3 different people called the police to make a report about 5 strangers with steel-like arms and legs entering the mountains, all wearing camping backpacks. The villagers did not say that these 5 were the wanted criminals, only that they had behaved suspiciously. Lu Yuan asked the village chief to call the 3 people who made the reports and then told his subordinates to take each one to a different room to be questioned separately while he went to interrogate the first person alone. His face was full of wrinkles and his skin was dark from tanning. Just from the first sight, you would know he was an out farmer. Lu Yuan asked, "When did you see them?" "Inside a crude brick house," the old man said with erratic eyes. "It was 3 or 4 in the afternoon, I called the police as soon as I saw them." Lu Yuan immediately felt something wrong. What kind of clothes were they wearing? "The kind of outdoor sportswear you city folks usually wear, what's it called?" "That's right, windbreaker," answered the old man. "Was there any woman?" Lu Yuan's expression turned grave. The old man was taken aback. "I don't think there was." "What were the colors of their clothes? Answer me within 10 seconds. The old man stammered and said he couldn't remember. "How much money did you receive?" Lu Yuan stood up in anger. "Do you know how many people could be harmed because of your false report?" There was no need to ask any further questions, a real witness would definitely not act like this. If Lu Yuan couldn't even make this judgment, he wouldn't be able to remain in Kunlun. After he turned around and walked out of the room, a Kunlun member asked him, "How's it going on for you, team leader Lu?" "There's something fishy on my side." His wife said he suddenly brought home a wad of brand new cash yesterday. Luring the tiger away from the mountain. Lu Yuan stood outside the door and contemplated silently. But what was the purpose of leading them away from their base? There were still 6 Kunlun members on duty in the city. Even if he weren't there, once the fugitives made a move, they wouldn't necessarily be able to escape unscathed. Wrong. Lu Yuan abruptly raised his head. It was Laojun Mountain. They exerted all kinds of tricks to mislead him to this remote place, just to prevent him from reaching Laojun Mountain in time. It would take 4 hours to return to the city from this place, and nearly 3 hours to get to Laojun Mountain from the city. All of their arrangements were made just to obtain these 7 hours. Therefore, those thugs would complete their plan within 7 hours tonight. Deep in the night. They were going to race in the dark. The countdown reset. Return countdown. For 8.00.00, when the darkness dissipated once again, Qin Chen was wearing a cat face mask, standing inside a dim corridor. In the confinement room, Yi Wan and Lin Xiaoxiao had just finished giving Lu Dezhu the genetic injection. The 2 people by his side startled Lu Dezhu, who had also transmigrated over. He spat out a gold bar from his mouth and said, "Can these good fellows please release me first? The injection is already done." Qin Chen slowly walked into the confinement room and asked him with a cold voice, "Why didn't you reply to my message?" Yi Wan and Lin Xiaoxiao looked at each other and stepped aside. They didn't know what had happened to them in the outer world. Lying on the bed, Lu Dezhu cautiously answered, "Boss, it's not that I don't want to reply to you. The thing is, I was always together with my classmates and had no chance to check the communication device." In fact, Lu Dezhu was lying. He could have replied to Qin Chen when he went to the toilet, but he was having too much fun playing with his classmates on the road. After reaching their destination, everyone gathered together and had a bonfire party, so he completely forgot about the communication device. Qin Chen didn't know about all of this, so he instructed, "After you return this time, don't go out during the 7 days National Day holiday, understand?" Lu Dezhu was stunned for a second. "Boss, I'm already at Laojun Mountain, will it be okay if I hide at home after I return from my trip?" This time, it was Qin Chen's turn to be stunned. At this moment, all 47 students had already arrived at Laojun Mountain. Not only that, they had even played games organized by Hu Xiaoniu and Zhang Tianjin. Until 1 second before the countdown reached 0, everyone was still playing passing the flower to the beat of the drum, 1 a game in which players sit in a circle passing a flower around while a drum is beaten. When the drumbeat stops, the player holding the flower must sing a song, answer a question, or drink a glass of wine, etc. By the bonfire in the courtyard of the inn. When the drumbeat stopped, the person who received the flower would have to perform. In the outer world, the drum was still beating. Qin Chen sank into a considerable silence. You already went to Laojun Mountain. Which BB do you guys stay in? Lu Dezhu said, I think it's called Yinshangyin, it seems to be quite famous in Laojun Mountain. There are 47 students in our group, the transfer students from High City paid the 3-day rent fee for everyone. Qin Chen questioned, did you guys set this schedule a long time ago? Why have you never mentioned it to me? Lu Dezhu saw that the boss seemed to be angry and hurriedly explained, it hasn't been planned for long, those High City transfer students suddenly brought up the idea. Also, the original schedule was to leave on the morning of October 1st, but because the school gave us an early holiday, we also set out ahead of time. While saying all this, Lu Dezhu muttered in his heart. It looked like the boss was not his classmate, otherwise, why would he not know about the trip to Laojun Mountain? By now, Qin Chen's expression had completely calmed down beneath the mask. Yinshangyin, Jiang Shui had mentioned it before. Jiang Shui originally wanted to rent a room there, but the inn was quite large and only accepted group bookings during the National Day holiday period. The most important thing was that Yinshangyin was right next to the place they rented. Qin Chen looked at Lu Dezhu and thought, turned out all those loud cheers, laughter, and drumbeats were made by them. Amazing. Dozens of people were mingled into an ensemble of noises. At a distance of more than 50 meters, even Qin Chen wasn't able to recognize the voices he was familiar with. It seemed like the fugitives had come for Lu Dezhu. On the surface, there wasn't any other time traveler who had more value than Lu Dezhu in Laojun Mountain. But what Qin Chen didn't understand was how did they find out in advance about Lu Dezhu and others coming to Laojun Mountain. These people had obviously made preparations before coming, they even knew that Lu Dezhu's group was staying at Yinshangyin. There's a traitor, Qin Chen calmly said, someone told the thugs about your itinerary. Not only do they know which place you guys are staying at, the traitor even divulged the fact that you guys would arrive one day early. Lu Dezhu stared at the cat face mask in front of him. Boss, what are you saying?